The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
10-year-old Rebecca Batiste died a death no child should ever know. Alone, abused, and broken, found on a remote Arizona highway, her body bore the horrifying signs of torture, bruises, starvation, and unimaginable cruelty. Her toenails had been torn off, her eyes blackened, her tiny frame ravaged. Despite desperate calls from her school, no help came in time. Now her father and his girlfriend face murder charges, and tonight we have the details. In South Georgia, a former JAG officer on trial for the murder and dismemberment of his second wife. What is the physical evidence in this case, and what did the victim's mother have to say on the witness stand? Tonight, we'll show you what happened. But first, a 7-month-old baby abandoned, alive and alone on a stranger's yard in Tennessee. Investigators quickly posted pictures of the baby and tracked down her family. But when they got to the home, they discovered a horrific scene. The baby's mom, dad, grandma, and uncle all killed. A family slaughtered. Authorities named Austin Drummond, 28 years old, as the prime suspect, charging him with 4 counts of first-degree murder, aggravated kidnapping, and weapons violations. Drummond is a violent felon who was recently released from prison after maxing out his sentence. He was also out on bond for an unrelated attempted murder charge. A massive manhunt ensued across West Tennessee as Drummond was declared armed, dangerous, and wanted for the execution-style killings of the little baby's relatives. Ultimately, public tips led to his dramatic arrest in Jackson, and today he was in court for his first appearance, and we have all the latest.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. Great to have you aboard. This case out of Tennessee, it's still not clear to me what we are talking about here. Let's start first. There was a precious life that was spared. A mass killer takes a baby and removes the baby from the scene of this horrific massacre of 4 people, all from her family. Takes the baby, removes the baby from the scene because he knows if I leave the baby here, this baby will die. There'll be no one to take care of the child, and no one knows that the child is in peril. So there's a really good chance that this baby is going to die. So I'm going to remove this baby from the scene, drive 40 minutes away, and then go to a stranger's home and drop the baby off, but honk the horn and make sure that someone in that house knows that there's a baby who needs to be taken care of right here. Knowing that by leaving the baby there, it will lead investigators relatively quickly to the mass murder scene that was left behind. So think about that. Think about putting all those pieces together. That's what's happening here. To save the baby, it's going to cause investigators to find what was left behind, the murder of 4 people. Now, like I said, 4 lives were taken there. So the same person who is saving the baby is killing the baby's mother, is killing the baby's father, is killing the baby's grandmother, and is killing the baby's 15-year-old uncle. You're taking all that away from this child, but you want to make sure the child lives. It brings me to the point of this case where you're trying to figure out this killer. Is this a heartless killer who will kill and attempt to kill? And it doesn't matter, the body count just doesn't matter? I'll take your life for whatever the reason is. Don't forget, according to investigators, the suspect in this case, Austin Drummond, already maxed out a sentence for a violent crime. Then while in prison, was charged with attempted murder, trying to take someone else's life. Gets out and allegedly commits mass murder of a 15-year-old, two 20-year-olds, and a 38-year-old, all related. Wipes out a family. But on the other hand, is this a killer with a heart who saved a baby that isn't so detached from the world, that took the time to save a child, despite the fact that saving the child was going to lead investigators much more quickly to the scene and much more quickly to him? What exactly is going on here? And this is important because of the allegations of taking those 4 lives, having that track record beforehand, made this a case, and I spoke with the prosecutor earlier this week, that this was a case that was death penalty eligible. So what goes into the equation here? Is this a killer with a heart that you would not seek the death penalty against? Or is this a heartless killer, the worst of the worst, who you would go after with the ultimate punishment in the state of Tennessee? That question answered today by Danny Goodman. The District Attorney General was on this program and was in court today.
General, does the state wish to be heard on bond at this time?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, at this time, the state intends to seek the death penalty. This is a capital case. We're asking that he be held without bond.
The state is seeking the death penalty and requests that he be held without bond. This is now at the next level. This is a death penalty case. Take a listen to the judge laying out the charges and the allegations that will now become death penalty eligible for this jury. Take a look.
There's one count of first-degree murder. It's alleged that on 29th of July, Mr. Braden Williams was located deceased from apparent gunshot wounds on Carrington Road in Tiptonville in Lake County, Tennessee. In addition to that, finally, he has one count of aggravated kidnapping and a possession of a firearm during the commission of a dangerous felony. It's alleged that all of the victims in the count in the case that previously were mentioned were located deceased from apparent gunshot wounds on the same date. A minor child with the date of birth 12/12/2024 with the initials WW was discovered left in the front of a residence in Dyer County, Tennessee. States that Mr. Drummond committed the offense of aggravated kidnapping by false imprisonment, which was committed to facilitate the commission of a felony or flight. It's alleged he committed this offense also possessing a firearm during the commission of said dangerous felony when he possessed a firearm. He therefore has those counts. General Goodman, is the state moving forward with felony charges in this matter?
Yes, Your Honor, we are.
Mr. Drummond, I'm going to enter a not guilty plea for you at this time on your behalf, being that you do not have counsel appointed or retained to represent you.
You know, as you look at him there, making that first appearance, sitting in the chair, surrounded by law enforcement and personnel from the court, it almost looks like he's ready for the death penalty there. But this is now a death penalty case. How is this issue of saving the baby gonna play now? We know what the prosecutor thinks about it, but what will the jury think about it as they potentially have to make this decision of life or death if, in fact, he's convicted of this quadruple murder? Let's bring in our think tank. Joining me tonight, attorney Stephen Longo Also joining us, criminal defense attorney Eklund Mercy and criminal defense attorney Ellis Palavides. Great to see everyone tonight. Stephen, what are your thoughts about, because to me that's what this, if in fact, you know, the evidence is as strong as we believe it is, it led to this man very quickly. He ran, you know, he was on the run, he was on the lam. Everything's pointing towards a potential guilty verdict in this, right? If that happens and this jury has to decide life or death, how big of an issue will be the fact that, yes, he spared the baby's life and he made sure that the baby was taken care of?
I think it'll be prevalent, if only because it's the only thing he has to maybe save him from the death penalty. And what is also curious is that we currently do not have any released documents regarding what the motive was for these killings. We read that there may be some loose association with the grandmother's sister, but I would be curious to see if any of this motive winds up being somehow tied to the reason why the baby was spared.
Eklund, what are your thoughts here? The defense, I don't know how big of a hand they're going to be dealt. I think Stephen's right when you talk about the motive, the why of it, if in fact he's responsible. If the why of it plays into some mitigating factor, I can't imagine what it would be.
No.
But how about the baby? How about the baby? Does this whole thing for the defense revolve around the child?
Yeah, no, because there's still bodies. There's plenty of bodies, and the fact that the child survived, it kind of is. It's just, we're just happy that the child survived, but it doesn't help or hurt him. You understand what I'm saying?
But the baby didn't just the baby didn't just survive, right? It was, the baby was removed from a scene where the baby would have likely not survived by the alleged killer, placed on a stranger's lawn, but not just left there. I mean, he took the action of leaning on the horn and making sure that someone took care of the baby.
There's too many bodies. There's too many bodies, Vinnie. There's too many bodies. So apparently your conscience came up a little bit towards the end and you decided to, you know, try to make it to happen. It doesn't matter. There's too many bodies. The fact that he had a conscience towards the end doesn't negate all the bodies that he left behind. The baby doesn't have a family because of him. So it really doesn't matter. It actually hurts him more. In the closing, the prosecutor is going to use that baby to undo him. So I don't think it's going to help him at all.
Now, there's another little fact here, Ellis, I want to put into the mix because the defendant spoke today at this first appearance. They were talking about him hiring an attorney, but during the course of that, we learned about his small business that he was running. Let's listen closely.
I'm not going to be able to hire an attorney.
Okay. Sir, if you could, to the best of your ability, please raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give is true, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
You can put your hand down, sir. Mr. Drummond, prior to being taken in on these charges, sir, were you working anywhere?
I had a business, inflatable run business, kids parties, also take about child shows, decorations, stuff like that.
So you were self-employed, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Inflatable balloons for kids' parties. That's the business he was in, Ellis. What are your thoughts about this guy? Again, if he's convicted, his chances of trying to save himself from the death penalty and going to death row and eventually being executed.
I do think it is a mitigating factor now that we're at the penalty phase, right? He can't really leverage it if he tries the case, because then he would in essence have to admit that he did it, right? To save the baby from it, he would have to have admitted to doing it. So you can only use it at the sentencing. But at the sentencing, I think the issue is going to be he's got a pretty bad record. He was out for another attempted murder. And I think when you start weighing and balancing everything, he was only out 11 months before this happened while he's fighting an attempted murder case. I think eventually he's going to have to hear the music on that. And he created the situation where he needed to save the baby as well, right? You set the house on fire and save one person in there. That's not really going to do that much.
Yeah. I mean, he had a moment of compassion in the midst of a mass murder. It's bizarre. I've never seen this before. And I think the one fact we don't know, as Stephen pointed out, is why this took place. If in fact there's a trial, my guess, Stephen, that's what the trial will be about, right? If they can place him at the scene, if they've got some sort of evidence that places him there and places the weapon in his hand, then the defense has to be about something that the victims did to him. And I don't know if that exists, but to me, that's what the trial will be about before you get to the penalty phase.
Well, that's exactly what it's...
I agree. It has to, as you said, has to be about the why. Why did these things happen? Why did he do them? And I'll be curious to see how this unfolds.
Yeah, I'm wondering, Eklund, I can't imagine what is going on here. Now, there may be some connection with the grandmother's sister, so they knew him, so he wouldn't have to, like, storm into the house for whatever reason. But these were people he knew.
Yeah, that's why I don't think you're going to get the why unless he pleads. I think that by going the death penalty, you kind of didn't give him an option to plead. I think that for the purposes of judicial economy, if he were to take the death penalty off the table, he would more likely be able to give you the whole story, and the whole story at sentencing, and that may be able to give the family some peace. But trying to find the whole story during trial, not happening, buddy, because the defendant does not have to testify. They have the right to be silent and not testify. So I don't think in a case like this, he's not taking the stand. So the only way you're going to get his story is if he pleads.
Yeah. All right, Think Tank, staying with us for the hour. All right, coming up, we're going to talk about the dismembered wife murder trial plus coming up in the next hour.
Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, she delivered a tearful eulogy and posted grieving TikToks for the world to see. But now this Georgia teenager is accused of murdering the very parents she claimed to mourn. What was real and what was part of the performance? Tonight, we investigate.
The Court TV podcast will return.
Had you ever heard any information concerning their safety being at risk, that being Mr. Casotis and Mindy?
Oh, yes, all the time.
Tell us about that. What happened?
Well, it was way back before they even moved out of Virginia. We were told that they had people who were after them, and that they had to be very careful what they were doing and where they were moving, and you had to be cognizant of everything that was around you at the time to make sure that nothing was, no one was following us or anything like that.
Was Mindy afraid?
Oh, yes.
Did you believe she was afraid?
Yes, very much.
Strange case out of Georgia. The defendant is a former JAG, right? A lawyer in the military. This guy is bright. He knows what he's doing, living this bizarre life. He's with his second wife, Mindy, and they're like running around scared. And the defense is saying it's about some guy, Jim McIntyre, some guy who was handling their money. There was a $1.5 million judgment that his first wife had against him that apparently wasn't paying, but he's on the run with Mindy, and then Mindy ends up dead, chopped up and scattered in the woods. And then in a few months, he gets on to wife number 3. What's going on here? Well, today, Mindy, wife number 2's parents testified. That was her father. Let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft, who's live outside the courthouse in Riceboro, Georgia, south of Savannah, in the middle of almost nowhere. I mean, this is like deep southern Georgia. Kelly, let's talk about Mindy's mother who testified today. What did she tell this jury?
Well, good evening to you, Vinny. So you used the word strange, bizarre. This is odd. This case, it doesn't even seem to make sense. When you're even sitting inside the courtroom, we listened to the mother on the stand. This is Betsy Mebane. She's Mindy's mother. And she was describing her daughter as being very smart, that her daughter is not one that would be known to lie to her, that she believed things that her daughter was telling her, as well as believing her husband. This is Mindy, her daughter's husband, who is the defendant in this case. And she talked about how Mindy was afraid for her life. She feared for her life for years, as did Mindy's husband. Let's go ahead and listen to that bit of testimony.
Did there come a time when something occurred to make you believe that there was a change in their marriage condition?
Yes, when they actually were sort of hiding out because we were told they feared for their lives.
Who told you that?
Mindy and Nick.
So, Vinny, you heard Betsy talking about that on the stand, how her daughter feared for her life. And then she eventually begins to testify and becomes emotional about talking how Nick now, her daughter's husband, informs them that their daughter is now deceased. Let's go ahead and play that.
Did he eventually tell you she died?
Yes, and he did not know he didn't know exactly what had happened. He said he'd been texting her all morning and she didn't answer, so he thought she was sleeping.
Okay. At that point, when he told you that she had died, did you have an opportunity?
Excuse me, just a minute. He told us that she was in her room and she needed to go to the bathroom, so the nurses unhooked her from all of her equipment, and she went to the bathroom, and then the nurse got called away, and she went back and got into bed and had a stroke, and there was no one there. I mean, she wasn't hooked up, so that's supposedly what happened to her.
Did you believe him at the time?
Yes, I did.
How does that make you feel in hindsight?
Stupid, naive.
And not too long after learning that their daughter had passed away, a few months later, Vinny, then they hear that Nick, her husband, had also passed away. And it wasn't until an investigator from Georgia came and started talking to them that they realized that Nick, the defendant in this case, was actually still alive.
So these are just outright lies, right? He's saying that their daughter died in the hospital. She didn't die in the hospital. There's no record of any of that. Her body is scattered in the woods. This dismembered. This is, I mean, it's bizarre. Like, how do you think you can continue with that lie about where someone's child died? Okay. How about physical evidence? Let's talk about physical evidence. What is this jury seeing in terms of physical evidence in this case?
Vinny, over the last 2.5 days, we have listened to a lot of the evidence that has been collected, that was collected in this case. So one of the big pieces of evidence the investigator was talking about, this is a Milwaukee hunting knife. So a knife was found close to where some of Mindy's remains were found. Problem is, or at least the benefit for defense counsel here, is there's no DNA evidence on there, nothing to tie it to what actually took place and what happened to Mindy. But why don't we go ahead and listen to the investigator talking about that knife.
This document here, I'm sorry, is actually the list of items he purchased, that Nicholas Casadas purchased from Home Depot. And it is a receipt for November 29, 2022 for a Milwaukee smooth blade insulation knife.
That's that same orange handle knife that has been referred to earlier.
Correct.
Do you recognize the person who's depicted in this surveillance video attached to that exhibit?
Yes, sir, it's Mr. Casadas.
Do you see anything under his arm?
It appears to be a Milwaukee knife.
So Vinnie, jurors saw that knife. They also saw some evidence of a 7-piece knife set that was purchased at a Bass Pro Shop. They've also heard about the Clorox wipes, latex gloves, a folding utility knife, a putty knife, also just a lot of other items, including these tubs that you're seeing. Why don't we go ahead and listen to some more testimony in which they are talking about now a rug that was missing from a Savannah apartment that he had been renting.
Describe this rug for the jury.
It's a soft, colorful, regular rug. I think 5 by 7.
Now, initially, when you went to the property after Mr. Casadas moved out, did you immediately recognize this rug was missing?
Yes.
And what was in its place?
It was another rug that was like a cheaper rug and a smaller rug instead.
What's that picture? This rug here.
I think it's a replacement rug. Yeah.
So this is not the rug that you had when you rented the place?
No.
So Vinnie, that landlord was testifying about that rug being missing and replaced with another rug. Defense counsel was quick to point out that possibly some other people could have been staying there at times, may have taken the rug themselves. She said on the stand that that wasn't likely.
Yeah, this is some strange stuff by a guy who's smart enough, right, allegedly, to wipe everything down with the Clorox wipes, but then you're feeding these lies that can be proven in like 2 seconds. I don't get it. All right, Kelly Craft, thanks so much. We'll check back with you tomorrow on all this. Let's bring back in our think tank. Still with us, Stephen Longo. He's joining us by phone now. Eklund Mercy is with us, and Ellis Palavides. Ellis, right, so it starts off like, okay, I see where potentially this defendant is trying to set this up, if in fact he's responsible, right? Where we're scared, we're on the run, someone's after us, and then one of us dies. The problem is, he's telling the parents that she dies in the hospital, but they find all the remains in the woods. And it's just not, like, to me, it's getting painfully obvious at that point. Is there any way the jury could get past that and be focused on, like, there's no fingerprints?
So this is what we call a circumstantial case in the business, which means that there are different pieces, all of which, when seen together, paint the picture. And is it enough to convince them beyond a reasonable doubt? And a lot of times people have this aversion toward and think that circumstantial cases are somehow weaker just because there isn't a direct piece of evidence. However, it's not always just about what they don't have, although the defense tries to make it about that. It's about what they do have and how powerful that evidence is.
You know, Eklund, this poor Mindy is scared. She's on the run. She's telling her parents they're scared. All this is strange stuff. These are adults. Like, what are we doing? We're running around. But she ends up chopped up in the woods. I hate to be so crass, but he's seen buying a knife, and then a knife just like that is found at the scene. Like, 2 + 2, sometimes it equals 4, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think he has some delusions of grandeur. They may have had their little Bonnie and Clyde moment. And just based off of all of the evidence, it just seems like he's probably, if you check his computer, if you check his screen time, you could probably see that he's been looking at certain criminal shows or dealing with very violent video games. The amount of stuff that he got for after just kind of helps the case that it was premeditated in the sense that you got the tubs, you got all of this stuff. But a lot of people forget that regardless of how much you practice, you can't, when it actually happens, you don't know how you're going to react to law enforcement. You're not that calm. You're not that good. You do not have an Emmy or an Oscar. So to think that you're going to finesse law enforcement and finesse every single body. When you're lying, you have to keep up with the lie. So a lot of people forget about that. And I think that that's how they're going to make their cases. It's just by literally, just by poking at every single lie. So instead of following the facts, they would follow the lie in this prosecution.
Stephen, long ago, he's a JAG. So he's a lawyer, he's educated, he's in the military, he's disciplined, he's trained. Yet, how does he end up where he ends up here, Stephen? This is the part that you're trying to understand. He's got to have something, like something terribly wrong upstairs that you could somehow do the analysis of what takes place here and think that you are gonna get away with it.
Sometimes people who are smart, or at least perceived to be smart, have this awful tendency to think they can continue or perpetually outsmart everybody. And I think this disinformation campaign that he kind of launched in starting this web of lies is never really came together. And if it did, to an extent, it's certainly coming undone. He definitely made a good effort in keeping out some of that direct physical evidence, and some of that I'm sure comes from his law background. But to your point, the lies are almost comical at this point. They keep mounting, and I don't think there's any way when you put all of those puzzle pieces next to each other that the jury won't see the clear picture that this guy's guilty.
All right, think tank, sticking around. When we come back, horrific story out of Arizona. A 10-year-old girl found abandoned on an Arizona highway. She's dead. What they did to this little girl is outrageous, and now her father and his girlfriend are under arrest.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
On July 27th, officers found the 10-year-old was not breathing, and they say they could see bruising, cuts, and that the little girl was malnourished.
She sustained subdural hematomas, bruising up and down her entire body, missing toenails.
Those injuries described by prosecutors this week as both Baptiste and Woods appeared in court, now charged with first-degree murder following Rebecca's death on July 30th.
This story involving a 10-year-old girl named Rebecca Baptiste will break your heart, and it will make you seething mad at the same time. We're talking about the torture of a beautiful little girl. Ashley Holden from Scripps News Group has the story.
Over a long period of time, this child was subjected to some horrendous conditions.
In court, Apache County prosecutors describing the injuries of 10-year-old Rebecca Baptiste.
I have marked, if for the court's consideration, exhibits 2, 3, and 4, which are excerpts from some of the hospital records regarding Rebecca, the victim who died, indicating both acute, so some very recent significant injuries that she sustained, subdural hematomas, bruising up and down her entire body, missing toenails, and then also long-term care issues.
While we still don't know her cause of death, a newly obtained police report says on July 27th it was Rebecca's dad, Richard Baptiste, and his girlfriend, Anicia Woods, who called 911, saying Rebecca was not breathing, telling police she had run away and had been found by a neighbor. But both Richard and Woods were arrested. The little girl was taken to Phoenix Children's, where she died 3 days later.
An actual medical diagnosis said that the above findings are highly concerning for child physical abuse, child sexual abuse, and torture.
Prosecutors allege 2 other children in the home also had injuries. A new complaint says Rebecca's dad and Woods are now charged with first-degree murder and child abuse.
Rebecca was an absolutely beautiful human. She was one of our best students.
The Empower College prep community left grieving. ABC 15 was told Rebecca and 2 of her siblings were students there until family says they recently moved out of the valley. Administrators say staff reported suspected abuse or neglect to the Arizona Department of Child Safety 12 times in the last year.
In terms of what you guys did see, what kind of prompted you to report?
On more than one occasion, and more than one of the Baptiste scholars shared that they felt unsafe or that they did not want to return home. They would make allegations and have markings on them that were evident that aligned with the allegations that they made.
Administrators say DCS told them the case had been assigned to an investigator at least 4 times, but now they want answers.
Do you feel like the state let these kids down?
Yeah, absolutely. We believe that the lack of, absolute follow-through or investigation to support these kids and keep them safe, both physically, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, was not done.
When a child doesn't have a parent to protect them, when a child is being abused by a parent, the last line of defense is the rest of us, the rest of society. And in this case, the school teachers and the administrators, they stepped up, they did what they were supposed to do. They reported it. Then the people whose sole job is to protect the child didn't protect the child. How does that happen? We know what's going to happen to dad and the girlfriend. I don't even need to talk about that. Let's talk about saving our children here. Think Tank back with us. Stephen Longo, Eklund Mercy, and Ellis Palavides. Eklund, I don't know, 12 times in a year they're called. Where there's smoke, there's fire. My goodness, how could you investigate and not, no toenails? What is going on here?
The issue is the Department of Child Safety. They're booked. They are busy. The case managers have they have files, case files like 100 kids or 100 families. And 100 families, not just minor issues. These are 100 families with severe issues. It makes sense for 4 case managers to try to get to that case. It's 4 case managers that probably were overwhelmed, that got fired, that quit, because it's that hard of a job. Being a case manager is traumatic. So one case like Rebecca's, but there's hundreds in your bag. Like you have 100 files of Rebecca's. And at any given point, it can get to a fatal, but you don't have the funding. You don't have the people. And the case managers they're not taught to be able to seek out which ones are dire. You know what I'm saying? They're not trained sufficiently to be able to do their job to protect babies like Rebecca. So it's really sad because the teachers did their job.
It's sad, it's tragic, but here's the thing, Ellis. I watch news. I hear all this talk about millions for this, millions for that, all this money that is wasted in our government, whether it's federal, local, state, doesn't matter. It is wasted left and right. How on earth can we as a society not have more money to plug into here? These are the most vulnerable. These are our children, like society's children. And when their parents are the ones who are inflicting the pain and the torture, this is when we need the resources to step in. No caseworker should be so overwhelmed, or a system so overwhelmed, that when 12 calls come in about a child being tortured, then nothing gets done. How on earth does our government and look us straight in the face and say, yeah, it's okay, with all the money they waste on everything else?
Well, I think that eventually a civil suit's going to happen, and I assure you that resources will be found to pay that judgment when that comes through, because at 12 calls, you have an issue. So sometimes maybe it'd be better if there was a more efficient allocation on the front end, because you're going to be paying for this on the back end.
It gets me so angry, Stephen, because we know we pay a lot of taxes. We know we do. Everybody does. Whether it's sales tax, property tax, state tax, local tax, city tax, whatever. Death tax. You just get tax. The money's there. It's where it goes. And why this doesn't make its way to the top of the ladder. These are our children. This is our future. These are the people who cannot, these children can't protect themselves if it's their own parents who are inflicting the damage. How on earth do we let this happen? Collectively, all of us.
I think it's a complete failure within the Department of Child Safety's own procedures and policies. To Ellis's point, when the civil suit does come, and it will come, I think we'll get a good look at the failures of those policies and procedures. Regardless, we all know that government workers and caseworkers within this department are overworked. That's why we're supposed to have efficient policies and procedures to follow so that the cases that are supposed to be prioritized to protect children get done first. The department's name is Child Safety. How can we not look at this as a complete and utter failure of one of our government institutions?
This is so, and by the way, 2 more children, thank goodness they got out, but it's really hard to accept, right? We know it happened. It won't be the last time this is going to happen, and it's certainly not the first. It's going to happen again and again and again. But like if you're running a government and this is a department, like how do you not say, okay, this is the one, this is our top priority. Let's start here and then take care of everything else. Because if the children aren't safe, what's the point? If we can't protect children. And it's not like, oh, we got a call and yeah, we went out there and they made it look pretty. You get 12 calls. 12 calls. And the teachers, so good. They're keeping their eyes and ears open. The kids were actually, it seems like they were actually speaking up themselves. And no one's listened. Well, the teachers were listening, but no one else was listening to protect them. Are we out of time? I got to check. We are out of time. We are out of time. I thought I was. I heard myself talking so much, I'm like, we're probably out of time. Stephen Longo, Eklund Mercy, Ellis Pelavides, thank you all so much. We'll see you again really, really soon. When we come back, folks, I'll still be talking, but something else you need to know tonight.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's take a look at the big board. And Sheriff Mickey Steins from Kentucky, the sheriff who shot the judge in his chambers, wants to unseal his psych evaluation. What does that tell me? That psych evaluation shows that the sheriff may not have been of his sound mind at the time of the shooting, that maybe he couldn't tell the difference between right and wrong when he shot and killed the judge in the judge's chambers. We'll keep an eye on this one. There's a big hearing coming up on August 15th. Of course, you'll see all the details right here on Court TV. All right, please take a look at your television screens. We have a missing child who needs your help tonight. This is Jacinda Lynn Lowell, just 17 years old, missing from Shelton, Washington since August 5th. Now, she may still be in the local area, and I want you to notice that her ears and septum are pierced, and she may go by the name Remy. So if you see Jacinda or you hear someone call her Remy, pick up the phone, make a call, make a difference, 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or you can call the Shelton Police Department in Washington. Numbers on the screen for you right now. Don't go anywhere. We have another hour of live true crime. Vinnie Politan Investigates is next. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids.
There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.